Okay, so you want to own a private airport. Buy a vast strip of flat land, lay down a paved runway, build a few hangars, and watch private jets and twin-engine Cessnas roll in while you collect landing fees. That's the plan in your head, and on paper, it sounds like the ultimate aviation lifestyle business. Drive past a thriving general aviation airfield on a sunny Saturday morning, and it looks like a gold mine. Million-dollar turboprops are lined up on the ramp. Wealthy flight enthusiasts are chatting outside immaculate hangars. Fuel trucks are pumping thousands of gallons of aviation fuel, and a sleek private jet is touching down on the tarmac. You watch that scene and you think, this place must print money. Exclusive access, wealthy clients, sky-high prices. Simple. Here's the problem. You are looking at the visible surface of an industry where the land, the pavement, and the regulatory environment quietly conspire to drain your bank account faster than almost any other commercial real estate asset in the world. The truth is that a private airport is not really a transportation business. It is a high-liability infrastructure utility that happens to sell parking spaces and liquid fuel to a tiny, hyper-demanding niche of customers. And the moment you understand that distinction, everything about how private airfields make money and how they quietly bleed cash starts to make total sense. Let's start with what it actually takes to get the runway lights turned on. Before a single propeller spins on your property, you have to survive the land and development phase. An airport requires an enormous footprint. A standard general aviation runway designed for light aircraft needs at least 3,000 to 4,000 feet of paved length, plus safety overrun buffers, taxiways, and apron parking. If you want to handle mid-size corporate jets like a Citation or a Gulfstream, you need 5,000 feet or more of heavy-load asphalt or concrete. Add required FAA clear zones at both ends of the runway to protect approach corridors, and even a modest private airport requires anywhere from 80 to 250 acres of flat, clear land. In a secondary or suburban market near a growing metro area, acquiring 150 acres of usable land can run anywhere from $2 million to over $10 million before you pour a single yard of asphalt. Then comes the paving, and this is where first-time owners face their first major financial shock. A runway is not a standard highway. It must support repeated high-impact point loads from landing gear without cracking, shifting, or developing loose debris. Grading, sub-base preparation, drainage engineering, and specialized aviation-grade asphalt paving for a 4,000-foot runway and taxiway system routinely costs between $2 million and $6 million. Next is lighting and navigational infrastructure. FAA-compliant runway edge lights, threshold lights, precision approach path indicators, visual approach slope indicators, automated weather reporting systems, and a rotating beacon easily add another $200,000 to $600,000. Then you have the hangars. A private airport without hangars is like a marina without boat slips. It produces almost no recurring revenue. Building a basic bank of 10 nested T-hangars for light aircraft costs $400,000 to $800,000. A single 10,000 square foot clear-span corporate box hangar capable of housing modern business jets runs $1 million to $2.5 million. Add security fencing, fuel tank storage farms, ground power units, environmental containment systems, and liability insurance reserves, and a lean, mid-sized private airfield can easily demand $8 million to $20 million in startup capital just to open its airspace. Now, let's look at the core financial engine of a private airport. How does an airfield actually generate cash? Most outsiders assume airports live on landing fees. In reality, unless you operate a bustling commercial hub, landing fees are often a minor or non-existent revenue stream for private general aviation airfields. Charge a $30 landing fee to a piston pilot, and they will simply fly to the municipal field 10 miles away. The true revenue model of a private airport rests on three distinct pillars: hangar leases, fuel sales, and tie-down fees. The first pillar is hangar leases. This is the bedrock of airfield stability. Aircraft owners do not want their $300,000 Cirrus or $5 million jet sitting outdoors exposed to hail, UV radiation, and freezing weather. They will pay steady, predictable monthly rent for secure indoor storage. A standard T-hangar for a single-engine plane typically rents for $300 to $700 per month, depending on the region. A shared box hangar for turboprops might charge $1,000 to $2,500 per month per aircraft. A private corporate box hangar can command $5,000 to $15,000 a month from a single corporate flight department. Hangar revenue is essentially industrial real estate rent, low maintenance, recurring, and contracted on 1 to 5 year terms. The second pillar, and the largest driver of top-line cash flow, is aviation fuel. A private airport typically operates its own fixed base operator, or FBO, which controls fuel sales. The airfield sells two primary fuels, 100 low-lead Avgas for piston aircraft, and Jet A, kerosene-based fuel for turboprops and jets. The economics of fuel are all about margin and volume. 100 piston fuel delivers steady, low-volume sales with gross margins of $1 to $2 per gallon. A typical Cessna fills up with 30 to 50 gallons, generating $40 to $80 in gross profit. Jet A, however, is the real profit prize. A corporate business jet might take on 400 to 1,200 gallons in a single fueling stop. At a gross margin of $1.50 to $2.50 per gallon, a single private jet departure can deliver $800 to $2,500 in gross margin in less than 20 minutes. The third pillar consists of tie-down fees and ramp services. If an aircraft parks outside on the open apron, you charge an overnight parking fee of $10 to $50 for small planes, or $100 to $300 for heavy jets. Smart operators waive this ramp fee if the pilot buys a minimum threshold of fuel, trading parking revenue for high-margin fuel volume. Beyond these core pillars, mature airports layer on high-margin secondary revenue. Aircraft maintenance leases, leasing space to certified mechanics, avionics shops, flight school leases, aircraft detailing, and car rental commissions for visiting executives. On paper, this looks like a beautifully balanced commercial machine. Now, let's talk about what can go wrong, because the cost side of an airport is relentless. The single biggest operational trap is pavement life cycle depreciation. Asphalt does not last. Constant exposure to extreme temperature swings, jet exhaust, hydraulic fluid spills, and ground impact causes runways to deteriorate. Every 3 to 5 years, your entire runway surface must be crack-sealed and seal-coated to prevent water penetration, costing $50,000 to $150,000. Every 15 to 20 years, the runway requires a full mill and overlay repaving project. That bill can easily land between $1 million and $3 million. Public municipal airports get this funded largely by FAA Airport Improvement Program, AIP, grants, where the federal government pays up to 90% of the cost using aviation trust fund taxes. But as a purely private airport owner, you are cut off from most federal grants unless you open your field to the public and enter strict federal obligations. You must fund every square foot of repaving entirely out of your own cash reserves. Then comes the liability and regulatory burden. Aviation is among the most heavily regulated environments in commerce. Underground fuel storage tanks require constant monitoring for environmental leaks. Contaminated soil cleanup from a ruptured tank can easily bankrupt a private operator. Add aviation premises liability insurance, which protects against runway incursions, fuel farm fires, or taxiway collisions. A private airport's commercial insurance bill routinely runs $40,000 to $120,000 every single year. Then there is the quiet killer, fixed overhead. Groundskeeping across 150 acres requires heavy-duty commercial mowers and constant maintenance. Runways in northern climates require industrial snowplows and de-icing equipment costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Runway lighting systems consume significant electricity and require certified electricians when circuits fail. Now, let's look at the actual numbers over a full operating year for a mid-sized private airport. Imagine a privately owned general aviation airport with a 4,200-foot paved runway, 40 hangars, 2 large corporate box hangars, and an active FBO. Total asset acquisition and build-out cost, $10 million. Financed with $4 million in equity and a $6 million commercial mortgage at 7% interest over 20 years. Annual debt service, roughly $558,000 per year. Let's compare 2 realistic operating scenarios. Scenario 1, the thriving year. The local economy is strong, flight activity is high, and a corporate jet charter company bases 3 aircraft at your field. Hangar leases, 40T hangars at $500 per MO, $240,000, plus 2 box hangars at $6,000 per MO, $144,000, equals $384,000. Fuel gross profit, 180,000 gallons of Jet A at $2 margin, $360,000, plus 50,000 gallons of 100 LL at $1.50 margin, $75,000, equals $435,000. Tie down and ramp fees, $45,000. Tenant leases, flight school, and maintenance shop, $72,000. Total gross operating income, $936,000. Now, subtract operating expenses. FBO staff payroll, line service, manager $220,000. Property taxes, $95,000. Aviation insurance, $55,000. Utilities and runway lighting, $35,000. Mowing, grounds, and snow removal, $40,000. Credit card fees and POS systems, $25,000. Pavement and facility capital reserve, mandatory $85,000. Total operating expenses, $555,000. Net operating income, NOI $936,000 to $555,000 equals $381,000. Now subtract the annual debt service. $381,000 NOI, $558,000 debt service equals minus $177,000 net annual cash deficit. Even in a strong operating year with high fuel flow and full hangars, the sheer weight of a $6 million debt load leaves the owner with a negative cash flow. The business only turns positive if the owner deployed significantly more upfront equity or if fuel volume doubles. Scenario 2. The stagnant bad year. Fuel prices spike, reducing discretionary general aviation flights by 25%. A local business closes, leaving 1 corporate box hangar vacant. A wet spring damages the taxiway subbase. Hangar leases, 90% T-hangar occupancy, plus 1 vacant box hangar, $288,000. Fuel gross profit, volume drops 30%, $304,500. Tie down and tenant leases, $80,000. Total gross operating income, $672,500. Operating expenses remain largely fixed. Trimmed payroll and overhead, $190,000. Taxes, insurance, utilities, $185,000. Repairs, mowing, grounds, $55,000. Mandatory pavement reserve, $85,000. Total operating expenses, $515,000. Net operating income, NOI $672,500 to $515,000 equals $157,500. Subtract the unchanged debt service. $157,500 NOI, $558,000 debt service equals minus $400,500 annual deficit. The owner must now inject over $400,000 out of pocket simply to keep the runway operational and prevent the bank from seizing the asset. So, why does anyone own a private airport? Because like ranches and luxury real estate, the true financial play of an airport is rarely operational cash flow. It is land banking and strategic real estate value. Large contiguous parcels of flat land near growing metropolitan areas are extraordinarily rare. Over 20 to 30 years, suburban sprawl expands toward the airfield. While the hangars and fuel sales pay to maintain the property and service the debt, the underlying 200 acres can appreciate from agricultural land values into multi-million-dollar prime industrial and commercial development dirt. Many airfield owners operate the runway for decades, break even on operations, and ultimately sell the property to industrial logistics developers for distribution centers or high-density residential subdivisions, cashing out with massive 8-figure equity windfalls. The airplanes pay the property taxes, the dirt creates the wealth. If you ever decide to buy an airport, remember the golden rule of general aviation economics. An airport is not a vanity playground for flying enthusiasts. It is an industrial land asset wrapped in high-liability infrastructure. The operators who thrive are not the ones who love airplanes the most. They are the ones who control fuel margins obsessively, fill every square foot of hangar space, fund their pavement reserves before touching a cent of profit, and structure their capital so they can hold the land until the rest of the world expands to meet their fence line. The runway brings the airplanes in. The underlying land equity is the only reason the runway exists.